that means it worked.
Yeah.
We're off, right?
It's,
Oh my God. Let's go. Let's do this.
yeah.
All right. So for those of y'all who are watching live, I know a lot of people do watch the replay, so I appreciate y'all. Welcome back to another Slice of Pie Tipsy Tuesday. We are drinking. What are you drinking? I got water.
Multiple things. Coffee, crystal light water.
We are hydrated for tonight's episode, and we are so excited to have you back, Cheresse.
Thank you.
For those of y'all who might have caught the first round show, Cheresse joined us on a Team Tuesday. So she was here with my daughter, and we're talking about her career, and so we'll touch a little bit more on that. But we have some other areas that we want to talk about. So I think this is going to be really inspiring and impactful and encouraging. Doesn't matter where you are in your career. This is a good one to love, like, and share. And I'm just grateful, Cheresse, that you didn't ignore my email and came back.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited. I'm sure there's going to be some of my soapbox topics that are going to come up throughout this conversation. So let's get into it.
Let's get it. All right. So by way of introduction, can you tell folks a little bit about, what you do in your day job? Like what do you do for a living? What do you do right now?
Yeah, so I grew up in South Florida, so from Miami. I still have my 305, cell phone number. So I'm always going to be representing for South Florida. And I wanted to be a footwear designer as far back as I could remember. I was definitely a kid who loved basketball and sports and sneakers and fashion and all of those things. I was so consumed by that growing up as a kid. And I was also really fortunate to have really great art teachers along my journey who always helped support me and move me along from one part of my upbringing to the next. And I discovered sneaker design and industrial design as a career path in high school, and blessed enough to actually start my career in that field. So I've been in the footwear industry now. I'm going on to my 16th year, which is really scary to say. Yeah, I've been in the industry now for the summer will be 16 years. Started my career at Nike as a footwear designer. I've worked on Nike basketball footwear, some Kobe products for China, cricket product, if anyone's from the Caribbean or from familiar with the sport of cricket, in India as well. So I've worked on some of that product and the Jordan brand. So got a chance to do some really fun projects while at Nike and spending my time there. Around 2016, I decided to leave the industry and actually go back to South Florida and teach design at the high school and college level, and also consulting a bit. I was very passionate about education and helping others discover their creative path, because there's so many jobs and there's so many roles within this industry that we're just not aware of. People aren't aware of, and people, especially from the Black and Brown community, just aren't aware of these career fields. So I'm very passionate about sharing and helping people to understand that there are jobs like this out there. And currently, I lead a program called S.E.E.D at adidas, so School for Experiential Education and Design, which is a program that is really a university alternative to gain entrance and to be upskilled in footwear design. And we've brought in 3 cohorts, 3 generations into the program thus far, focused on women of color, to get into this industry and to get into the adidas brand and footwear in particular. And I'm really excited to be able to do the work that I've done and to be able to create pathways for this. Yeah.
Wow. That, the point that you made about the fact that there are a lot of folks that are not aware of these career paths. And so when we had you on earlier, and by the way, I dropped the link to S.E.E.D in the chat. So for those of y'all watching replay, click the link. You find out more. But the fact that you're a forerunner in this field, quite frankly, so you're not gonna brag on you, but I do that because I'm gonna brag on my friends. But you are very successful in this field, and the fact that you're bringing awareness to this type of career path. Like I said, a lot of us in the Black and Brown communities are just not aware that, or we don't have access to the information. So huge shout out and thank you for everything that you're doing to make sure that our kids have access, y'all, right? We have access,
Awareness, access,
awareness.
resources,
Yes.
pathways.
Yeah.
Every piece of the
All of that.
puzzle, every part of that journey should be supported. I had the great fortune of going off to college with 8 of my friends from high school because we all wanted to do very similar things. And
Yeah.
by the end of the 4 years, I was the only one left from my friend group, so there are a lot of obstacles that really challenge our ability to be successful and get to where we want to be. And I'm passionate about helping to remove some of those obstacles in the
I
path.
love that. And also dropping your LinkedIn for the grown folks, y'all. Please follow Cheresse on LinkedIn, and you'll be able to see a lot of the work that's coming out of her organization. And quite frankly, I think a lot of it is just inspirational. Even though it's not my field, I love just seeing some of the great products and, real life things that are happening that are coming from your space. So again,
Thank you.
huge shout out to Cheresse for all and everything. All right, so I want to switch a little bit from career, because as we were in our green room backstage, where the real real fun happens, we were talking about kind of preparing for this call and just kind of shifting into this year and maybe how we're approaching work, how we approach life at work. And again, I think this is really going to help folks, again, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're working by yourself, or you're in a company, working with a bunch of people, or you got one employee and that's it. I think this is going to really, really help. We started touching on vulnerability, and I was sharing that, especially for those of us and women that look like us, we have a different level of sets of expectation that we are always like the strong ones. And I do realize that also puts a lot of pressure on us to overperform or to perform to these expectations, that quite frankly peers that are white women don't get that kind of pressure at all, right? It doesn't exist for them as much as it does for us. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what some of the journey for you, as an African woman, as a leader, as an exec, especially in your field. How do you respond to that? Having to constantly be like the strong one, and measuring your level of vulnerability and what you can bring. How you show up at work.
It's a constant, level of tweaking and shifting and changing. I think that I put the most amount of pressure on myself just because I've felt like I've always had to. And I think it's probably cultural and also a generational thing. I'm a millennial, and I've grown up with a lot of strong mentors who were from the previous generation. So Gen X, right? And
yeah.
I've taken on a lot of those traits. So I think that generation had to endure things that I didn't have to endure in my generation, but I'm operating through that because they taught me. So I'm in a place where I rarely give myself enough latitude to be human. I feel like I drive myself pretty hard. And I think because I drive myself that way, I also have that expectation of others around me, right? Where it's like, this is my bar of excellence, and then I expect that from everyone else. But everyone else may not have that level of commitment and an investment in their own success. So I think that's a place where I've had to adjust a lot. I always tell our designers that they should have their own level of excellence for themselves because it's important, and they can't succumb to the standards of everyone around them. Because I see that all the time, right? You see a lot with kids, right? Where they're looking around them to identify how far they should push themselves because they just want to fit in, right? They don't necessarily want to be too far off to the left or too far behind. They want to kind of keep pace with the pack. I guess that works in school, but when you're in the real world, you want to distinguish yourself. You want to make sure that you're excelling, and because that's how you get promotions, like those types of things. So I think it's important to yes, have your own level of excellence, but also to acknowledge that everyone's at a different place, and that's okay too. And that's
I love
thing
that.
that I'm learning a lot in the work that I'm doing, to allow everyone around me to choose
Mm,
who they want to be, how they want to show up, and the level of commitment, they want to exhibit, because I can't control it, right? They have to decide and choose for themselves. And all I can do is try to be an example, but I'm not the law either, So
yeah.
that's the place that I'm coming to, because, even with the next generation coming in, Gen Zers, they are very different. They have a different point of view. um, they may not want to take the same path, right? And that's okay. So that's a big lesson I'm learning right now.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that. And Makisha, who is in the room, she actually has, I'm just going to do a sidebar shout out, but she has a really cool podcast called The Dumping Ground. And she talks to a lot of business owners, business leaders. And a lot of what you're saying, quite frankly, is a lot of what folks that are on her program is saying, very similar about being that strong person. But the point that you make about allowing people to just be themselves, that takes a ton of pressure off, because you don't have to perform. So if you've been, the point around, if you've been in, high school or even college, where you're trying to not be out front, and all of a sudden you come into the workspace, and that the expectation is, if you're not doing X, if you're not putting out, if you're not overperforming your performance ratings, your manager meetings, like, what I mean? All of those things, it's set up in a way that if you're not conscious about what you're doing, it'll just end up burning you out, stressing you out, because you're trying to reach these, ridiculous at sometimes expectations that, we are actually still putting on ourselves. So I appreciate that. So something else we started talking about is what's happened in the workplace around some of the expectations from the workplace. And we started talking about maybe some of the programs that are now offered in this generation. Quite frankly, I think a lot of the programs that have been offered by organizations within the last few years, I think a lot of it has been a response to George Floyd, a lot of it has been response to COVID, and a lot of wellness and DEI programs, all these things. But the fact that we've seen a shift from where you'd get support from your community, now that has been shifted into people expecting those types of programmatic support in your workplace. And I was just thinking that if you're a small business, you're a small company, or you only have you're welcome, Makisha. Thanks for the plug. If you only have 1 or 2 employees, you're not set up to provide some of this programmatic type of support. But there has been that trend. I'd love to get your take on that shift from community into workplace, and what employees are now looking for.
Yeah, I was watching a podcast, or I came across this information somehow, but the conversation was around the workplace and how it's changed over time, and how society has changed, and how the workplace has had to keep up with the societal changes that were happening. If you think back to like the 50s and 60s, there's a lot more balance in life, right? A lot of people had their church home that they were also feeding into, and that provided a sense of community. They probably had a bowling league or some other sport league that they were a part of, or a bridge club or whatever. They had different parts of their life to fill different needs that they were having, and especially for a sense of community. And now that a lot of that has shifted and it's changed, and I think technology also plays a part in that, where now our community is in our phones, right? But that also isn't a true sense of community in the ways in which we need that human connection and interaction. So now a lot of things have changed, right? Or people have fallen away from organized religion and come around, a particular subject matter. They still need that human connection and alignment, and to feel like they're understood. And a lot of that pressure, I think, is now put on the workplace to provide some of those human needs, right? And I think we're seeing that in terms of the conversations that we're having, the programs, to your point, that are being provided, or affinity groups. Right? Affinity groups weren't really a thing in the organization, and now people are are centered around identity, right? If we have a shared identity, now we have community because it is a human need. So it's been really interesting to see how the workplace has had to evolve to service the whole human
Yeah.
as much as it can, right? As it can. I'm really curious to see how that's going to keep shifting and evolving as time goes on.
Do you think that, or what are your thoughts around that same shift or evolution that needs to happen in terms of being a leader? Do you think that how leaders respond now to what employees might need, or even in your particular industry, is there a shift that happens within leadership as well?
I think so. I think it has to be, right? We have to evolve with the time. I think at one point, someone would have said, well, just suck it up, but we can't,
Yeah.
like, we're past that now, right? Where, we have to exhibit a lot more compassion. I think, especially with the coming out of the pandemic, right? Where we were having
Yeah.
conversations, like real conversations about what we're all going through because we're experiencing this life change in real time together, and we had to address some of the things that everyone was feeling and really just start to help each other through that situation. And
Yeah.
then now that we're somewhat back to normal, so to speak, or back, meeting together, those needs are still there.
Yeah.
They were never, maybe they were hidden and now they're unveiled and now they're still present, but we have to think about what are our desired outcomes. Do we want the people on our teams to be successful? If we do, we have to understand where they are, where we want them to be or where they want to be, and then help them to get there, right? Whether
Yeah.
that's saying, hey, go take this class, or LinkedIn Learning has tons of opportunities or ways to learn, or we're partnering them with another mentor on the team to grow in a certain area, or we all go take a class together or do yoga together. I think it's just having shared experiences as a team helps to also create that sense of belonging on the team, which really could help change someone's life. We never know what anyone's going through on our teams.
Yeah. Are there tactics or things that folks who are leading the younger generation, so even I'm talking like managers, supervisors, execs, etc., what can they do so that they're having a connection back to younger employees?
We talked a little bit about vulnerability, and I think that is a piece of it too. I'm, working through that myself. Um, just allowing my teammates to see that I don't always have it all together. Like, I have a vision for the destination, but we're partners in how we get there, right? Because
Ooh.
everyone on the team has a destination or a way in which they want to grow, but it's not the same for everyone. And letting everyone know that, hey, we're partners in your growth. So
Mm.
I'm not, and I always say this too, you're in the driver's seat, I'm your co-pilot, right? I want you to tell me where you're going and I'm going to help you get there. So also handing over the keys a bit to
Yeah.
make them feel more empowered. I think coming out of a structured, learning experience like public school or whatever school you've gone to, we've gotten so used to just checking boxes. Like, I want an A+, so I have to do XYZ. And we're working towards this like report card.
Yeah.
And then when you get into, a workplace, there's still that mindset of, I want an A+, so my boss is saying I have to do these things. I don't know why I have to do these things, but I'm just going to do it because I want to get an A+. And we have to break out of that and understand that, no, your manager is there to, yes, tell you what direction we're going, but you're an equal partner in saying how we're going to get there, because you've been hired because you have a very unique skill set that no one else has, not the way that you have it.
Yeah.
So you're hired for a reason. And I had a really great mentor, tell me that I have to really own my point of view and stand strong on that, because I've been hired for my point of view. I haven't been hired to just agree with everyone else in the room, but I'm bringing something very unique and different than anyone else in the room, and I have to be confident in that. And that's why I tell our students too. So I think it's important to make young people feel like they're empowered, right? They have
Yeah.
agency and choice, and to help support them in that and let them try and fail, right? To see what works. So that's really important.
The point that you're making around understanding your value and what you bring to the table it's so key. And there are still a lot of adults who haven't learned that lesson yet. And I'm talking folks in their 50s, okay,
Sure.
who still struggle with coming to grips with who they are. I was in a meeting earlier today, and I won't throw people under the bus or give too much away, but there was a conversation around knowing who you are, and there were some folks who were like throwing out, try this assessment, try this assessment, try this. And I literally was like looking at like, how many assessments can you take?
Right.
Like,
Right.
you're over assessing, and that we have also created these labels for ourselves that might be true for that space in time. That assessment that I took in 2001 isn't going to resonate in 2023 because I hopefully would have grown, right? So,
Right.
so that even that kind of discussion around your values and knowing who you are and what you bring to the table. There was an interesting question, and I'd love to get your take on it. That you really need to understand your weaknesses and really not. The idea was, well, you already know what your strengths are, so just focus on your weakness. And for that, I was like, I don't have time for that.
Right. Exactly.
I'm going to focus on what I do very, very well. The rest of
Yeah.
it will come. So I would love to find, like, what's your take? And do you have students that ask, those types of questions? Are they there yet? Or is this just an our generation
Oh
thing?
no, we're all having the identity question. I think everyone, no matter how old you are in constant question of who am I, and what
Yeah.
makes me think of the purpose question, right? Like, what's my purpose,
Yeah.
or why am I here, and on those types of things. And it's not always easy to identify, and I always like to offer up a different point of view for folks. If you can't figure out what you're passionate about, what do you loathe? Like, what is the thing
Oh.
you hate? And for me, it's ignorance. Like, that's my biggest pet peeve. Because we have access to information, and if we don't, we can find it.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm in education, right? Because that's my biggest pet peeve and problem I have with society. So then I'm meant to help to solve that problem and that issue. So for a lot of people, that could be a great place to start. What keeps you up at night? What is the thing that really bothers you? Like, you want to see change happen in that area. It's probably
Yeah.
because you're meant to solve that problem, and you're meant to partner with people who also have an issue with that problem or that area. You all are meant to partner to solve that thing. It could be, the environment. It could be like myself, right? Like, wanting to make sure that everyone has access to information and make better choices for themselves and not be in the dark about certain things.
Yeah.
Or, it could be the way that something works, and you have an idea for a way it could work better, or a system or something. Like, those are the things we're meant to really solve and like sink our teeth into, if it's a real problem, like an issue that we feel like it's something's wrong with this society and it could be better, and I know how it can be better. Well, that's your problem to solve.
So go solve it, right? Don't
Exactly.
wait
Don't
for,
sit and talk about it, and
yeah.
you know
Don't meditate on it.
or
Don't think too hard. Just do it. Yeah.
go find people to partner with and solve the problem together.
Go find people to partner. And collaboration. I watch a lot of folks who have really great ideas, and they would try to collaborate. But another piece of advice I would share is, I would tell people all the time, like, my vision is my vision. It's my vision. So it is my responsibility to educate and then execute on that, right? Bring something to fruition out of this vision, but don't let other people corrupt that vision because it's yours. So even if you get into, you're going out to solve that problem, you may run into, this is not the right person to solve the problem with, but there's guaranteed to be somebody who's going to come along and be the right partner. So don't lose hope, and don't, step away from your vision if you run into the first roadblock, and that roadblock is, the wrong early partner. I call them early partners, because there's a lesson to be learned. So I want to ask, like, what kind of lesson learned have you had, whether it's in your career, on the job, or in college, or what is maybe like 2 or 3 lessons learned that you don't mind sharing with us, so that we don't make the same mistake?
No, I think it's that one. It's collaboration. I think as creatives, and I was, like I said, grew up as first and only child. So being an only child just kind of makes you very self-sufficient, and you spend a lot of time by yourself, right? So you're always in your head, and you have your own, to your point, visions, etc. And then also being an artist and being a creative, again, you have a strong point of view as to what you want to see this thing become. And if you've been working on it for a long time, now it's your baby, right? And you feel like you own it, therefore you can't invite anyone in to partake and partner. But that's the biggest lesson that I've learned, that I have to allow for partnership, and very beautiful things can happen in a partnership that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And that other people have had a really interesting life as well, with unique experiences and paths. And they're meant to also bring this thing to life, or take it further than I could have otherwise, that's one big lesson. And also that all the pieces of the puzzle don't have to be in place before we start to move. And that's something that I learned, within the last few years. And I think, again, being a creative, you can see how all the pieces of the puzzle can come together, and you have a vision as to how it can work. And sometimes we don't start it until we feel like we have all the pieces together. But if you don't start, you may miss your moment, right? So you really have to think about, do we have enough of the things that we need to start moving, right? And then as we're moving, we will find out that there's new information and new inputs coming, that now we need to tweak this piece of the puzzle because it's different now, because we're moving. You've heard it like before, right?
I love that.
You're building the plane as you fly it.
Yeah.
You're getting real-time information versus working so long on this prototype, and then you realize it actually doesn't fly at all. And then you've lost a lot of time. So that's been one of the biggest lessons for me, is that it's okay to start. It's okay that it's not perfect. We can evolve it as we go, and we'll learn as we go, and that's okay. It doesn't
always
be perfect and pristine and all of those types of things.
I love that. And if you're someone like, I have both sides of the brain. One part of me is creative, the other part is not. I'm very square, and then at the same time creative. It's that there's a level of trust in really kind of releasing your baby. You know what I mean? Like, trust that, I've done my best to get it to where it is, and it needs to go to the next level, and the next level is just going to keep moving forward. So I love that you start with, you just start. There's a lot of folks that have great ideas, and that great idea has been on the shelf since 1993 because they're afraid to start. Exactly. So for those of y'all who have great ideas who've been sitting on the shelf since 1993, or quite frankly, November 2022, pick it up and just get moving. Just one step at a time. Just get it started.
Yeah. And it will be better.
Yeah.
And because everything that we try to do, it really is an iterative process. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And there's no way to have it perfect on the front end. It has to go through this iterative process of trying things and tweaking as you move forward. And you also have to adjust for the weather conditions too, anyway. Right. So, and the challenge is to really just be okay with it and understand that that's part of the process. That's part of getting it from point A to point B, and then growing it is something totally different, right? Once it's up and in the air. So, but we just have to be okay with the process and not take it so personally, right? Like, this is a reflection of how great I am, or how great I'm not. Like, you just have to divorce, like, your identity and your knowledge or skill level from the thing and allow it to be what it will be, and then partner with others who can make it better.
Yeah, that defeat, don't be defeated by failure, right? Is the other way, the other way I think, like, don't let it crush you. It's just
Sure.
this exercise didn't work, but it doesn't mean that the next one won't. So you have to be able to pick yourself up. That goes back, I think, to the strong woman and being resilient. So there is some positive in it, in being that,
Right.
that having that inner core strength. And so I wanted to find out, shifting a little bit, where do you attribute to getting your strength from, your inner strength, and how, and how do you keep it nourished? Like, what is your circle? Like, where are you getting your strength from?
Oh, Jesus. I mean, it's no other. Very simple.
That was a cheat question.
One name. The things that I've experienced or had to work through or been through in my life, there's no way I'd be sitting here talking to you if it wasn't, but for the grace of God to bring me to this point, to sustain me through it all. Very easy answer, always my first answer. And then the second piece is, my family and the things that my family has had to overcome and work through. And my family, transitioned from Trinidad in the 70s to New York City. So the power and the vision that it takes to pack your whole family up and leave your home country and going to another country that is riddled with complexity as this one is, but with hope, right? With the hope that they could chart a better, more prosperous future for the generations to come. That's really my motivation, to feel like, okay, I'm pushing forward and I'm manifesting the visions of my, great grandmother and grandparents. That gives me the energy and the focus to keep going. And to pour that out, for the next generation. So that's where I get it from. I think that's the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning and me going. And then, the students that are in my team and the students that I'm able to come in contact with, seeing their hunger and their drive, and to see what, being successful means to them and their families.
Yeah.
And I want to help them materialize that, manifest that as well.
I love that. You have to be grounded. Everybody on this platform knows that I'm grounded in Jesus. So that's sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
Not sorry.
But yeah, you do have to be grounded, seriously, because otherwise you'll just get whipped up into everything, right? Everything becomes chaotic or stressed out, or, you need to be able to be, you need to have a firm foundation, is the best way I can put it. For those of y'all who need some spiritual lifting, come back on Thursday morning. I'm back every Thursday morning at 7. So yeah, but I love that. I love that you're sharing that. And again, that also is a part of being vulnerable, because a lot of us weren't comfortable even talking about that side of ourselves as women in business, women in leadership at all, right? It just was like a quiet spoken because you didn't want to offend anybody. But I think we're at a stage in our lives now where we're very comfortable about who we are, and this is who we are. So I appreciate you sharing that with our audience.
Yeah. No, that's a real thing. And I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing now if I hadn't really leaned in, because this was never on my vision board to do this type of work in the way in which I'm doing it. And I didn't want to leave South Florida. When I got back to Miami in 2016, I had no plans of ever leaving again. I'm like, I've gone out, I've done what I want to do. I got my dream job, so to speak. And I felt like, hey, I'm just gonna go back home and replant myself there and spend time with my family. And I was good. I wasn't looking for another job or another opportunity. And I really had to trust and lean in that I needed to make this move. And, I got married a year and a half after the move, met my husband, here. And so, trusting God for the things that we need to provide for us, even if we can't see the pathway, or that it's a hard thing for us to do, or something we don't want to do.
Yeah.
It just is about trusting in his plan for us and in his vision, because he can see around the corner. We can't. We just see things at face value, but we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and we just trust.
Yeah, there is joy in knowing that all things are working together for your good. That I take a lot of, there's a lot of peace in that. Before I used to just say it just to throw it out. All things are going to work together to figure itself out. But now, being a little bit more mature spiritually, I understand that I can take full joy that I really don't need to see around the corner, because all things are actually working together for my good.
Right.
Oh my gosh. So I ran out of questions. I actually wanted to get into your personal business and ask about like your girlfriend circle and how I can get included. But I don't know that. I don't want to embarrass myself on this platform in front of these people. But I'd love to find out, like, how do you keep going? You're one of the most inspirational and encouraging women in leadership that I know, to be honest. I'm gonna give you your flowers while you're here, because there's a lot of folks who could, based on the amount of work and how productive, like your fruit and what you produce could carry a lot of ego and give me not a time of day. And here you are back twice, sharing this little stage with me. And so I'm grateful for that. And I recognize the greatness in that. So I definitely want to make sure that, I'm so grateful. This is huge. And these things, y'all, these recordings, I joke, but this is generational stuff. This is stuff that will live out both of us, and someone will be blessed because we would have said something that touched somebody, and we don't know who that is. So for those of y'all who are watching the replay, I hope that you're picking up some of the lessons that we've learned, picking up some of the jewels we're dropping, so that you don't have to make mistakes that we did, right? You're coming in on a kind of a different level. So with that, I'm going to close this out, but we're going to hang out in the back room for a little bit while we tell these people good night.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.